Hey everyone, welcome to Boldly Becoming. I'm Angie Mercier, a retired superintendent of education turned executive leadership coach. After 31 years working within the system, I'm now dedicated to helping us speak and live our personal truth, all while leading ourselves and others. Alongside my inspiring guests, we'll share thoughts and stories of authenticity, courage, and transformation. Boldly Becoming is for you if you know that you are meant for more and you're looking for a little extra heart and soul to help you navigate the way. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back. I have an amazing episode to share with you today. And it's an episode that comes deep from within my core because one of my core values, I would say the most important core value that I live and love and lead with is actually love. So I want to talk to you about love and leadership. And I have a question for you. Do you believe that love actually belongs in leadership? We tend to think that it's separate, that love is only something that should be shared with our romantic partners or with our family. We don't actually think of love as part of the workplace. And sometimes when someone brings up that question, it brings up some interesting thoughts for us. When I was a superintendent, I used to talk to my principals about this exact thing, about leading with love. And I really wanted to dig in with them. Like, what does it actually look like to lead in our schools or lead in the system with love as the center? And I wanted to really be clear about why I have always felt that love does belong in leadership. Now, back then, love showed up in leadership as compassion, as empathy, as understanding, and just general humanity, being a good person. And I still believe in all of those things in terms of leading with love. But today, I would say when I look back, my faith, and I've talked to you about my faith and how it's grown over the last couple years since the death of my brother Kevin, but my faith has given me a much deeper and more meaningful understanding of love in different contexts. Okay, I just want to pause for a minute because I want to make sure that if some of you are sitting there thinking this is going to be a fluffy episode, this has nothing to do with leadership, I'm going to turn it off right now. I just want to remind you about a couple things before you press the stop button. I want to remind you that love is not weakness. Love is not about avoiding difficult conversations. Love isn't about making everyone happy. Love can actually make us braver leaders when we lead from a place of love. So, I want to dig into what love and leading with love, rather, means to me. And I've already shared that whole idea of compassion, meeting people where they're at with compassion, with understanding, with empathy, trying to walk and step into their shoes and understand where they're coming from. It's about seeing that whole person, not just in the singular context that you see them in, but reminding yourself that that person is in many different contexts, is a very complex person, and really listening for deep understanding, not listening to respond, but listening to hear them and understand them with your ears, with your mind, and with your heart. It's about you showing up authentically and vulnerably you. And I know for some of us, that's really, really challenging. But to me, leading with love equals authenticity. And authenticity is another one of my core values. And I believe it works beautifully together with love and is part of leading with love. Love is also courageous and brave, as I've already said. You know, and think about situations in your own family, even where you've had to turn on the courage button so that you can actually have that conversation with a family member. And sometimes it means doing something that feels so uncomfortable to you, but you're doing it out of kindness and love for that person, compassion and empathy and understanding, all those things. And then for sure, we know that when we're in a relationship that is based on the foundation of love, it's all about honesty, truth, kindness. Those are all parts of leading with love. Let me also add that boundaries can be very loving. I feel so much respect when someone puts up a boundary. Like, I don't look at it like, oh, they're saying no to me. I think that person is a clear boundary and they're exercising that. Wow, what an amazing way of them leading themselves. And I'm working on my own boundaries and how I set boundaries as well. But setting boundaries is a very loving practice, as is accountability. When I'm accountable to you, and you're accountable to me, that is a beautiful way of establishing a relationship that is just bound by all the right things. And as I've said, like sometimes the conversations that we're having with people can be super challenging. But if we're not having them and we're like talking behind their backs because we're annoyed with them and we're not being honest with them, how is that acting in any kind of a loving way? People need people. We need each other. So let's dive into the humanity piece of being a leader who acts with love. If we take out our humanness from leadership, like, what are we left with, right? We walk into our workplaces, we don our leadership hat, and we think we have to be polished and professional and perfect sometimes and emotionally detached from whatever is happening. But really, I want to ask you, what happens when we remove our hearts from the work that we need to do in the workplace? When we remove our hearts, we remove our humanity from the context, we remove our humanity from the situation. And we can't do that because organizations are made up of people, schools are made up of people, businesses are made up of people. We need to lead with our hearts as well as our heads. And I believe that strongly to my core. And I'm sure you can hear it in my voice right now that I do not believe that we can separate our hearts from our workplaces and from our jobs and from our leadership. You can't serve people while forgetting that you are one of them. You just can't. It's impossible. There will always be a gap if you serve people without your heart intact, without your heart as being part of your leadership. And I want to talk for a minute about the heart and decision making, because some of you might still be sitting on the fence about this idea. But I really want to get you into a space of thinking about what would it be like, or what is it like potentially if you're right now leading without your heart and you're leaving your heart outside the workplace. You're leading not with love, but with something else. You're leading with perfection or expectation or accountability. You're leading with your skills and the things you've been trained in, if that's how you're leading. All of those things are important. Data is important. Um, Strategy matters. Accountability matters. But people matter too. And leadership isn't just about making the right decision, it's considering how that decision is going to land on the human beings that you're working with. And again, holding both your heart and your head together all at once, knowing that you need both. I want to bring this into my executive leadership coaching. And while we're on the topic, I feel like I need to tell you all, because you're my podcast family, my podcast community, that I want to celebrate with you that I am officially certified as an executive leadership coach. I just received my certification this week. And my next step is to go into my level 2 in September, as well as to take my ICF level 1 exam. And that makes me so, so happy. But I wanted to celebrate that with you because you are so important to me and I love and appreciate how you cheer me on from the sidelines. But let me bring you into my world of coaching and something that I've realized, and this has come up repeatedly. This isn't just with one person, but it's kind of, I've already mentioned it, but this whole idea that we have a work me and we have a home me, like we have two people, two different people, and like they're operating from different values, like a professional identity and then a real identity or a home identity. I want to ask you, and I really want you to reflect on this for just a minute while I'm talking about like, who are you at work? What are your values at work? What's important to you at work? And then who are you at home? What are your values at home? What's important to you at home? And what happens if you have two completely different personas, almost like two different people? Like, honestly, I have to say, I can't even imagine keeping up with two different people. It must feel overwhelming. It must feel confusing. I really want you to take some time to reflect on that. And I will share my perspective on that, that I want to be one person. I operate from my same values. What's important to me at home and at work is similar. So when I say leading with love, love is one of my core values. Authenticity is one of my core values. Courage is as well. Connection is too. So all of those core values are going to show up in both my work self as well as in my home self. And so that to me also is all about having integrity. And sure, yes, we're in different contexts, different roles, absolutely, different situations, different decisions to be made, different demands. Like it's very, very different. But I'm still just one complete human being. I'm not two different people in two different contexts. So let me turn this over to you. Okay. We're still on the topic of leading with love, but I want to just dive into this idea of values and about what matters most to you. So, what does matter most to you in both contexts? And if you ask somebody, what do I value? Like, if you ask someone else to reflect back to you, like what your values are, do you think that your values are showing up? Or are they just something you keep in tight right next to your heart and you don't let them out? Are people actually knowing by your words, your actions, the way you listen, do they know and understand what you value? Does it show up? Can people actually see those values in how you lead or in the relationship you have with them? Can they see them in how you make decisions? And here's a good one. Because when we're in a state of overwhelm, when we're in a state of stress or overextension, we're beyond capacity, that's when sometimes something else kind of shows up. And it's not always our finer selves, right? But how do you, in those moments of stress, how do you treat people? Do you treat them according to your core values, or do you let your emotional self take over and maybe the truth, the honesty, the kindness, the integrity kind of blows out the window? Reflect on that for a minute. And how do you respond to someone when they disappoint you, whether that's a family member or a staff member? How do you handle power, the power that you have behind your title? Is it something that makes you feel like you're better than, or that you have the authority to act differently, more powerful? You need to be strong. What is your definition of how you handle power? Because sometimes we have to walk people through really challenging situations where we need to step into our power because we're doing something that could be disciplinary, for example. Very, very challenging. But how do you treat a person when you're going through that process? And it's something where your values will show up and you can still be a human and show that you are leading through that challenging process with love, compassion, and empathy. Your values aren't just something you put on a sticky note on your wall or something you write in a binder. Do people still have binders these days? Um, or you put on your website. If you have a website, they are what people experience from you. And perhaps you haven't been through values exercise, or you aren't even really sure what matters most to you. And that's some of the work that I actually spend a fair bit of time in my coaching practice, because it's surprising how many people have forgotten what matters to them. They get into a state of reaction and they're constantly reacting to their environment, to the situations, to the demands, and they become so overwhelmed and they're not acting in alignment with their values that it can cause such stress and such dissatisfaction in the workplace. So, we do a lot of work on values and really aligning actions with values and understanding what's important to us so that we know what we're actually willing to do and what kinds of decisions and where we need to go next. And so that is really, really important leadership work. I want to just dive into the faith idea just for a moment because love is absolutely central to my faith. And regardless of the faith that you have, whether you believe in something higher than yourselves, the universe, or you're in a different religion. My religion is Christianity, but you could be practicing in another religion. Love is central to faith. In the Christian religion, it's love your neighbor as yourself, or love is patient and kind, slow to anger. Love doesn't keep score. Like, what if we actually brought some of our faith based values around love into our leadership? And I don't mean going into your workplace and preaching your faith, but using it as a compass that guides you in some of your most challenging times, and love being the north of that compass. What would leadership look like if love was actually one of our leadership competencies? Can you imagine? Oh, that would be a happy day for me. But can you imagine if you saw that in your leadership competencies for your job description or in your job description? So, yes, I used to talk about leading with love before I have the language and the understanding that I have today, which is that always that hindsight, right? But I know that it's always been central to how I lead. And I just understand it a little more deeply right now. Um, I know that you may be feeling a little bit of tension at this point, especially if this has felt a little foreign to you. Um, but I just want to leave us with some of that tension we might be feeling and have you reframing what love can look like in the workplace and what it doesn't mean. So let's start with what it doesn't mean. It does not mean being soft. Okay, when we love someone, yes, we can think of loving someone in our family and with hugs and cuddles and all the loving kinds of things, but love can be soft in that kind of way, but love doesn't have to be soft, right? Love can be all those things we've already talked about. Love doesn't mean we avoid conflict. It doesn't mean that we always have to say yes or that we have to agree with someone. I used to always say to my principals, I will always support you. But please know that support does not necessarily equal agreement. I will support you through a process. I may not always agree with you, but that to me was still leading with love and leading with understanding. Love doesn't mean that you lower your standards or that you don't hold people accountable or that you aren't accountable. It doesn't mean those things. And finally, it doesn't mean that you have to be liked. And so many of us work so hard to be liked, but that's not what leading with love really is. Love is honesty, telling people the truth, holding a boundary, making difficult decisions, sometimes saying no, sometimes saying no, and also holding high standards for them and expecting more because you believe in them. And that's what we used to talk about with kids too, right? Like kids in the classroom, hold high standards for them because that shows that you believe they can do it. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful, loving way to be. And staying curious as opposed to judging what you think you already know about the person or the situation. See somebody's humanity, even when their behavior is difficult. See through the difficult behavior, see behavior as communication, and look at their true humanity beyond their behavior. I'm going to leave you with a few more questions. And this episode has really been a lot about questions and leaving you with questions. But I appreciate when somebody challenges me or asks me questions that I really need to spend some time reflecting on. So I want you to just reflect again on your practice and ask yourself, what does, in my perception, in my brain, what does leading with love actually mean to me? Not what Angie said it means, but what does it mean to me? I want you to think about a time when you have experienced someone who did not lead with love, someone who led you without love. What did that feel like? And what was the outcome of that for you? What did you change because of that? It's a really powerful question that I want you to consider. What happens when leaders disconnect from their humanity and they become a robot and leave their heart at the door? What kind of organizations are we talking about when people disconnect from their humanity? And then, who am I when I'm leading? What's important to me when I'm leading? And who am I when I'm not leading? What's important to me when I'm not leading? What would change if we stopped seeing our hearts as something that gets in the way of leadership and started seeing them as part of what makes us amazing leaders? What would happen? Love is not something that we're going to leave at the door when we step into leadership. It's part of our humanity. It's part of how we listen. It's part of how we make decisions. It's part of how we challenge. It's part of how we see people. It's how we treat people. And ultimately, how we lead. So, final question for you. Final question for you. If you are boldly becoming, and I know that you are because you're here, if you are boldly becoming, what does leading with love look like for you? I would love to hear some of your reflections. I would love to know if you have a reflection on this and you'd like to share it on social media and tag me. That would mean so much to me. Share this episode with someone else who might benefit from hearing it because I think a lot of us don't give ourselves permission to bring our hearts to the workplace. Let's make our workplaces more loving, more kind, more authentic, and just a beautiful space to be. I wish all of that and more for you. And I'm sending this episode to all of you with so much love. And I want you to feel that from me deeply and personally. Until next time, so grateful for you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If something from this episode sparked a shift in you, I would love to hear about it. Please share your biggest takeaway or aha moment on social media and tag me so I can celebrate your growth along with you. And if this show's adding value to the person you are becoming, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a 5-star review. Your support helps us reach more leaders who are ready to speak their truth, and I am deeply grateful for every single one of you in this community. Remember, this life isn't about reaching a destination. It's about loving the process of who you are becoming every step of the way. I'll see you next time.